B, we're ready whenever you are.
Okay. I'd like to go ahead and call the meeting today order for the Park and Recreation Advisory Commission on Thursday, September 21st, 2023. We'll call the meeting to order for today. Next, we'll take roll call.
Yes, Commissioner D'Amico.
Present.
Commissioner Courtney.
Here.
Vice Chair Tensher.
Here.
And Chair Sherman.
Here. Thank you.
And let it be known for the record that Chair Ainsworth is excused today.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to the Pledge of Allegiance. If we could stand for that, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Item number 4, the adoption of the agenda. Is there a call for a motion to accept the agenda that we have set for this evening? And a second?
Second. So moved.
First, a motion to accept that.
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Number 5, approval of minutes from our last meeting, which
We need
was...
to still call the vote, Chair.
Yes.
Chairman. Just
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? No. Okay, that passes. Now we're on to the approval of minutes from our last Park and Rec Advisory Commission meeting, which held July 20th, 2023. We had a very full agenda that night. We had a lot of good information that was shared with us. Can I call for a motion and a second after that to accept the minutes from the meeting in July?
Before we go there, there
Yes.
was one part with respect to the age, change in age on the student vacancy. Did we decide on a residence requirement? And I didn't see that the minutes reflected that. Oh, thank you. Sorry.
We did. There was we opened it up to, we opened the age up to middle and high school, and the residency requirement remained.
Thank you.
So is there, should we do a motion to approve the minutes then of July 20th, 2023 from one of the commissioners?
I'll go ahead and make that motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, and a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay, item number 6, public comment. That's not on the agenda so far. I know we have some 3 pieces that we were given ahead of time that were sent in.
Yeah, those would be for the item 7A.
Okay.
That we'll get up to, but we did have those come in. I don't believe there's any other public comment, but I'll defer to Eddie.
Correct. We did not receive any other public
Okay.
comment that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we're on to our administrative, our item number 7A is a review of the master plan, the document that Samantha and our staff in the town have spent so much time on that we reviewed for the first time last July, of this our last meeting.
Yes, thank you. So yeah, as you mentioned at the July Parks and Rec Advisory Commission meeting, you received that, and prior to, of course, to review it, the first draft of the master plan document, and we discussed it, and several areas that you indicated that we would look at for potentially further analysis, and staff addressed some of those areas in the second draft that's being presented this evening. And so we also continued the public outreach process after the meeting with press release and social media posts and reminders, and the council also reminding the community at public meetings that they could submit public comment regarding that document. And so after the July meeting up until September 18th, 2023, when the agenda was published, we received the 3 public comments below that were attached, and we did not receive any further since then. So when we had the discussion at the last meeting, the further analysis from staff was to think about the access to the pool. We talked about, is that really even feasible in 5 years? Should it be in the plan or not? Is it actionable? At this point, I feel like I would like to advise leaving that item in, just based on the amount of community feedback that it received in our outreach process. And it could be, you know, we do note that a future site or option is there's not a known one at this point, but that doesn't mean something couldn't present itself. And if we have it in the master plan, it may be helping us to position ourselves for something, because we've documented that the community has said that that's an unmet need. So we can discuss that further if the commission wishes. We also discussed the need to make sure that shade is a priority in our future projects in parks and outdoor areas. So we updated that language slightly in the grid to make sure it was just for broader consideration. Previously it said in highly used spaces, but I took that out and just left it pretty broad. So as we look at improvement projects in all of our parks and outdoor spaces, we can analyze shade needs. We also discussed the need for potentially including more fiscal information and how these potential projects or additions could impact staffing resources. And so I did some analysis and added columns to the recommendation grid that reflected kind of a scale of cost and staffing estimated impacts within a rating system. And so I used one dollar sign, which would be under $25,000, potentially 2, 25 to 75, 3, and 4. And then I used a full-time equivalent staffing model for I would estimate the impacts on staff. We did provide you, I feel like I'm cutting in and out. Is that just me?
No, you're not. I mean,
Okay, good.
fine.
It's just my brain is cutting it out. So I did include in the written and published document for the public those 3 public comments that we received. So I'm not going to actually read those into the record because they were made available. And as I discussed earlier, there wasn't any other public comments received. Although we published the full document again, I did just include kind of the main meat of where the changes were made in the printed packet for you that's at the dais and that I included in the email to you. So I just wanted to kind of run through those quickly. Actually, Eddie, I think I would like to share this one on the screen as well, if that's okay. Thank you so much. Momentarily, it will populate. There we go.
Samantha, did you have, I know it was on the counter at the office for checkout. Did you have any folks that?
We did. I think we had 6 people check out the master plan. One of them is still out.
Oh, so you had multiple copies.
Yeah,
okay,
so we had
got it.
multiple copies. And when I asked Stacy to kind of take a tally of, how many people actually checked one out. So 6. So yeah, that's pretty good. Including a past Parks and Recreation Advisory Commissioner, Paul Marciniak.
Palmer. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So although in the document, the only change, I made some slight tweaks to some of the historical information based on some feedback I got from Mayor Moeller, who, as you may know, is very much a historian of Yountville. And so it mainly applied to when the town was gifted or bought the property of the Veterans Memorial Park, when the highway caused that to split from the Veterans Homes property. So I did include a little bit of that, but otherwise the meat of the document, there's no other changes there. So this is that recommendation grid that you saw last time. And so I added the cost line and the staffing impact line. And I think that, we can always, when the question is, what is the current budget for things, we can always point back to the budget document. But I didn't want to pull that out into this document because that changes every year. So it would be relevant just for this year. But since this is a 5+ year plan, we can always every year point back to that budget document for, what are our current spending, or the capital improvement plan for what are our current budgets for projects. But as far as these recommendations and, what they could cost potentially, and then what could be their potential staffing impact. So, the first one is just that overarching maintain a high level of maintenance in our parks and public spaces. I did just include the current expense numbers there. So what is it that we budget? And then we currently have 3 FTEs assigned to all of our parks. And then some of our facilities is separate from that, but our parks, spaces, and paths are included in that 3 FTE. So as an example of more of a project-based one would be the development of a dog run, dog exercise park. I added the dog run exercise park instead of just saying dog park, because I think if we can look at this a little more objectively on what could suit these needs based on potential sites that we may have. Dog park sometimes presents itself as a very large space, whereas we may be able to fit the need that we're hearing in a smaller space. So I included run and park both in those, so that is a change. And then looking at what the cost of that could be, it really depends on what it is. A large-scale dog park is going to cost substantially more than a smaller-scale dog run that just needs some fencing and improvements. So, and then, again, these are estimates, but the additional maintenance staff for those is based really on, again, it's going to depend on what it is, and then just looking at and surveying some surrounding areas that have these type of amenities and how much maintenance time goes into them. And so the other one I'll just call out is the access to a swimming pool. That is just a very an unknown, right? So it could be as small as a partnership where our residents gain access, whether that's fee-based or not, and looking for some sort of way to facilitate that to, actually including a facility in the future that the town would manage. So, it's really going to vary. But as you went through, you'll see that a lot of these ideas don't have long-term staffing impacts because it's, the addition of an amenity of some kind, kind of a one-off. Access to a fitness facility or gym obviously could have staffing impacts depending on the scope of that and if it's our own facility or not. And then as far as programs and services, again, under the maintain high level of programming and events provided through Parks and Recreation, I just shared, the current cost, which would be our budget, is obviously over $150,000 mark. And then with part-time and full-time, we have 9.9 FTEs in the Parks and Recreation Department, the full-time equivalent, and that's 5 full-time. And then all of our part-time staffing hours across all programming would add up to another 4.9 FTE. So I think it was Commissioner D'Amico, is this helpful in answering maybe some of those questions you had about the budget impacts potentially of some of these things?
Yeah, I like that you used kind of a restaurant model.
Yeah.
That looks good, and I think it's more complete. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So otherwise, I'm really opening it up to comments from the commission. If there's anything that you see that is still maybe unclear or needs to be tidied up, and then the action tonight is really to approve this, whether it's as it's presented. You could switch the screen off now. As it's presented or with any amendments that you might make. And then you're also, obviously, it's within your purview to say we're not quite there yet, we're not ready to make a recommendation to the council. Provide me as staff feedback on what you would like to see changed, and then we would come back again at the November meeting. So those are all valuable feedback for me. If you do approve it, our thought process is to come forward for the first time to the town council in November, and obviously the public is invited yet again to make comments and give public comment and input on the plan at that point. And I don't anticipate them potentially approving it at one meeting. It may be 2, and so then that would be an additional 2 more times for public to give input. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a couple questions. One is the larger question. When you present the document to the town council, What in addition to the grid would you anticipate that you're going to include?
So I would obviously include the plan as a whole, and I think that pretty similar maybe to the presentation that I gave you at the last meeting, where I really walked through the process itself, highlight some of the things as far as, you know, the history of why we started this project, which a lot of which was to capture the history and then take the pulse of the community and find, you know, any of those unmet needs. And, you know, the goal of really to have a comprehensive document that could live into the future so that we have all this in one place. And so that their first presentation will most likely look quite a bit like what you had at your July meeting.
Right.
And then, of course, walking through, you know, the meat of it, when you call it a plan, you know, what is the plan then for the next 5 years, and, you know, making sure that the public feedback is in alignment with you know, what they're hearing and the feedback that they're getting as well.
Okay, great. And then specifically, one of the public comments that was included in our packet brought up the idea of, and this has to do with staffing and the impact of, say, a dog park, could be any of these things in some senses. If there were a community group formed to, say, become stewards, for lack of a better word, of the dog park. What are your thoughts on that as a way to potentially defray some of the expenses of certain proposals?
Well, I think that if the town was in a different financial situation, that we may look at but as far as an ongoing model, it's not always our first choice as far as maintenance is concerned. Obviously, relying on volunteers for, you know, certain programming aspects and things, I think that, you know, we definitely look to that. But if the town builds something, you know, we really want to be clear and transparent when we're entertaining those builds that there will be ongoing maintenance costs associated in the end. And if we're not prepared to have that ongoing expense, then yeah, we'd have to go back to the drawing board on what that could look like. And maybe that would be one of the options, you know, that we do have a community group responsible. But I think I also see the other side of it is that having more community input on, obviously, as speaking of a dog park specifically. So as that process works through, what does that look like? You know, what are the rules of the dog park, and how do we as a community work together to self-police, I guess, because there are, you know, pros and cons to everything. There's pros and cons to dog parks. And so I see that as being someone similar to the Yountville pickleball that, you know, you're very involved in, that helps steer us in the right direction. But as far as the facility maintenance itself, I would really advocate for that to be in-house.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification. I agree. I also thought that Yountville Arts was also a possible analog.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Did that work?
Oh, we're not using those.
Oh,
Do
I
you
was
see
curious.
it though?
Yeah, I was so excited. Okay. Yeah, no, again, real thorough. And I appreciate that conversation about like the conservancy model.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, when you know, it makes economic sense to deploy that kind of a thing, you know, I'm always open to a neighborhood group. But on the FTE, just so I'm clear, I know it's an estimate.
Yeah.
0.05 would be 2 hours?
0.05 would be, we consider it half a person, so it's 1,040 hours a year. So 2080 is a full-time person, so that would basically be like half of a 40-hour position.
I'm just you're losing me, and it's me.
Yeah,
I'm sure it is. Why isn't that 0.5?
I'm sorry, maybe it's a typo. Let me look.
You have a 0.5 and a 0.02, I think, is what you're looking at, right?
0.20 FTE would be 1 day a week, right?
20% of someone's time, yes.
And then 0.05 would be 2 hours.
Yeah.
Is that intentional?
Yes.
Okay, I suspected. Okay, that's all right.
And that was really based on what I consider to be what, the smallest scale of a dog run that we probably would invest in, and then the largest scale of a dog park that would make sense for a community of our size is really where I base that on.
It all goes to the thoroughness of the plan. I think it's great. I just want to make sure I understand.
Yes.
Thank you, Sam.
Absolutely.
Just to be clear.
Yes.
Because we like these sorts of things. Numbers
are,
should work.
Yes.
So if it's 0.02 of an FTE, and an FTE is 2040, 2080,
2080 a year.
2080, I get about 40 hours. So that's 1
it's
week.
0.20, so it'd be 20%, and then 0.05.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
The point.
0.05.
I broke it down
Yeah.
I broke it down
A week.
to a week.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Should I
Which is
not?
what I get.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
My bad.
I think we're all on the same page. Okay.
Yeah, and I kind of mentioned this, I think, one of our other meetings, but it's on the policies here, just again, this sliding scale for the pricing, the last things there, and that free programs. I just still think what the residents can take care of, and non-residents for the Golden Ticket Program, and we're talking seniors there, that the $75 for September to December, it's, that's a really low fee to be able to have to be charged for that, for all the different events, or all the different programs you could take and participate in. I know some of them that I take as well, there's a fee base for those, but otherwise, so many of them, there's no fee base for it. So it's still a relatively very inexpensive program compared to when we were talking about, if the gym was open and having something like that, a membership that you would pay for using the facility and equipment, et cetera, that would be inside a gym, pools, things. But I know that's one thing that was on the public survey when we did that last September.
Yes.
That was one of the big things. So I understand
Yeah.
why it's there, but it's still, that's a nice, and it's still under $100. I think, was it 85 or 86 for a non-resident
I think
program?
so. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's valid. But with it in the plan, then it'll come before you for that analysis and feedback, and we'll just see how it works through. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, David.
So I don't mean to beat a dead horse.
It's
but
okay.
I'm back on the pool.
Back on the pool.
And I'm only back on the pool because I know it's an interest of people in town, and based on our last meeting and based on what I just read about deferred maintenance at the Veterans Home and how much money's coming from the state to address deferred maintenance, I don't see a pool in the next 5 years, really. Master plan, in my view, is something that is administered by and under the purview of the Parks and Recreations Department. So if you had an MOU, for example, with St. Helena High School or some other place that had a pool and people had the option of going, just like they go to Synergy or somewhere else, you're not really doing anything other than just negotiating the MOU on behalf of the city, right?
Right.
And maybe that's what you're holding open here,
Yes.
is that possible idea. But I think it should be clear that I almost don't see that as a master plan item in a in a matrix of things that are really going to happen or likely to happen in some way, shape, or form over the next 5 years. I'm not going to lose sleep over it if you don't take it out. I just think it's confusing for people if they see that in that box and they think, well, maybe the city's going to work on this, but really it's a kind of a passive thing. Like if it came our way and somebody did the legwork and said we can do this,
Right.
the city would say let's talk about it. But really, this isn't something you're going to put a lot of man or lady hours into, right? I don't think.
No, it's just really based on, the amount of feedback that we got from the community of it still being a priority, and then having it listed. And, sometimes it can assist in positioning for grant funding or something otherwise. We do have a large undeveloped parcel. I don't know if a pool would be part of that. I had an interesting recommendation recently, which was to focus more on one of those swim spas, something people could reserve time in to swim laps in one of those very small, areas. So I thought, well, that's an interesting concept. It's not something we had thought about. So, just trying to keep our options open. And I do see where you're coming from.
Yeah. And I appreciate that there's a willingness to sort of think outside the box on it. And I'm a pool person. I love pools.
Yeah.
I spend time in pools. So it's not that I'm against it. I just don't know if I'm just questioning whether this is the play. This box, this part of the
Right.
document is where it should go, because it's sort of it's not in the planning process. It's just something people want. But anyway, that's my comment. I'm good.
Thank you.
And I can appreciate your comment, and I can appreciate Samantha's position, but I'll use an allegory or an analogous situation. I don't think before Barb Larson and Verlin Chalmers got interested in pickleball and started pickleball, there was anybody had that on their screen as a possibility, and now we have 4 pickleball courts that are very actively used with programming 5 days a week, at least in the morning hours, well, all the way to noon some days. So I think to have it as a placeholder so that you can get grant funding, and you never know. Our town is very dynamic in terms of people coming in, and sometimes people in our demographic have time on their hands and they want to make a contribution. So I think it's an opportunity.
I would love to see it. I would be the first one
Yeah.
slashing it.
Yes.
I never thought about that. But I'm with someone that has a lot of funds and they want to do a donation and build it. And there's someone that already is a business owner in town, since we have a lot of folks like that could perhaps do something like that. If there was a big interest for it, you should never know.
Yeah, that's
and
what I'm saying.
It's already set in place, the idea, the concept, and things of the past. Are there any other comments or questions? So do we? I guess leaving the pool thing on as a master plan, we don't really need to vote on that one particular item? Or
Asking for that.
no, okay. Is there any other discussion on that, or thinking
No,
that,
I
or
think
any
the
other
document's
concepts?
complete with Samantha's elaboration that
Yeah.
there would be other elements included in the document similar to what we had in our last meeting. Then
Yeah.
it seems to me we've done our due diligence.
So Sam, once this all what you've done here, and in addition to the packet of there's other items in that. So this will be the newest one that we'll be sharing with the council.
Yeah, so the document, the plan itself is the 108 page or 80,
Right.
88 pages, sorry. So I just really included where the changes were for you, because you didn't want to print that whole thing again.
Right.
But yes, the entire plan
entire
document
plan.
will move forward. Yes.
Which is a lot of information for everyone to look at.
Yeah. So I am asking if you're ready to approve the plan as presented and to move forward to the town council for consideration.
Okay. Call for the vote then.
I might cry.
Want to make a motion?
Make a motion, yeah.
Yes, we need a motion.
I'll move that we approve the draft plan, the draft Parks and Recreation Facility Master Plan for review by Town Council.
And is there a second?
I'll go ahead and second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed?
Thank you so much. This is
Thank
really
you.
exciting.
Really a lot of work that you had to
Yeah.
take care of to go from that big form into.
Yeah,
all these
it's very exciting. Thank you for all of your help and input as well.
Absolutely.
And time, reading.
Been a long time.
It's been a long haul. Yes. Thank you so much.
Have you calculated how many hours you spent on this with your staff?
No, I
Samantha?
probably should have, Kira, but I did not. No, it's okay,
Okay.
though. It's all worth it.
On to our next item. 7B is our second review of the town park and the path map that we had
Yes.
presented back in July.
So Kelly from Blue Zones wanted to be here tonight, but I think you saw in my email she is not able to due to illness. So she did. We had a meeting last week. She quickly turned around some last changes. Brad Ralston, our town manager, was in that meeting giving some input as well. So most of those changes happened before this document that I sent out, but I just wanted to go over a couple that are still outstanding in case they were on your list. So So the piece of the path that is in orange that goes up and down California Drive, that's actually just supposed to be the trail to the museum and then back down. So there is not a loop element there. They did not want people walking down California Drive to the south where there is not, it's really just a vehicular lane. So that will be updated to an up and back, just so you're aware. And then also these two brown lines here that kind of go nowhere and aren't connected to another route. It is marked as other designated trails, shared use path. That's supposed to be taken out. So the brown piece of the path here that I'm kind of circling with the mouse, as well as this this over here, because that's the only piece of brown we took back, or that is still remaining. So that whole piece can come off. And the goal there was to really look at this as a walking map. And so having those routes that have connectivity, although yes, those technically, are paths, they're not part of these routes that they had established through their process. So it doesn't really make sense to include them on there. So from your feedback from the last meeting, we also added the QR codes to which will be the landing page on the Town of Yountville website, where there'll be PDF document links to each of the trail or each of the paths, or excuse me, each of the walking routes specifically. So if you wanted to just look at number 1, you can click on the link, because that was something that had come up here. There's also a QR code to Outer Spatial, which would be the electronic equivalent to that, where you can look at just individual routes and not this layered map. So that all kind of came through your idea, which was terrific. We also changed some of the colors to make it more readable and added more of the bike path elements, or the bike lane elements really, to that. So you'll see those dotted blue lines that show what are, as part of the Napa County bike plan, some designated bike routes that pick up in town and then kind of lead out of town. One that's really popular, as you all know, is the Yount Mill Road, and there's no arrow there, so that's another change that I would like them to add, is just the continued arrow to make sense and align with Yountville Crossroad and Fennell Road with those arrows. All of our parks are listed, as well as restrooms, the public parking lots, bus stops. We asked for the commercial district to be the new name of this. It was, I think it was previous like entertainment district or something, which really didn't make sense for Yountville. So we're working to try to finalize this, but I just want to make sure and point out that when this document transfers from Blue Zones and their person drafting this to the town, it'll be in a format that we can then update. So if something changes, or we decide, wait a minute, we need to change this for whatever reason, we'll be able to update the document anytime. So. And I'm happy to bring any other feedback back to Kelly. I know that they want us to wrap this project up. So if you had any other thoughts or feedback, happy to bring that back to her. Thank you.
Yeah, the only one when I looked at it, and now this is a much clearer copy. The first one I had earlier, it was hard to read the right side. I was sharing with the commissioners, was from the one that we had back in July. Some of the street names were in white print. Mm-hmm. The major ones that were on here has Fennell, Washington, and it pops out more.
I think it was because it was on top of the line. So like Washington is still white because it's on top of the colored line. I could ask them to.
It's not that big of a deal, but I seen because it was on the color grid, so the black did not show up. This would be more consistent, I think, probably with the black, because everything is all in black by the lines there. So just to go back, I want to clarify that on the first one you talked about with the museum, the number 4, mm-hmm. that will still be outlined on here on the left. Is that right?
Yes. So what will be there for number 4 is just an out and back, and it instead of this loop coming down the south side of California Drive back to the highway.
Sort of front of Vintners. Yeah.
Yes. Shandon. Yeah. So the Veterans Home wanted to just have that up and back on the path next
Got
to
it. Okay,
Shandong.
thank you.
Yes. And then they also asked for it to say state property, not private property. And we made those changes. And they have approved this.
Great.
Yes.
That's good.
Without that south line, of course. Yeah.
Anybody else?
There's
have
no
any-
approval tonight. It's
Oh,
just really any other
okay.
feedback that you
could.
wanted.
I did have a quick comment.
Yes.
Well, question. So at the report, it was indicated to us that not on this physical map, but on the interactive map, there would be layers. Is that still going to take place?
Absolutely, yeah. So the landing page or the QR code to the town of Yountville will be PDF links to those. And then the outer spatial is actually a layered map that you can navigate. Yes, absolutely.
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah.
And then maybe I'm not, the Vine Trail,
Yes.
that's the purple, which,
The maroon.
okay. There we go. Okay, I see it there at the very bottom. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. And although it has an arrow, as we know, it doesn't go anywhere yet. So there was a notation on here, and how do you feel about the arrow there? It kind of leads people to believe it does continue through Yountville, and right now it does not. So I would be tempted to have them take that off, and then we can add it later because that portion
That
is
sounds
not there.
good.
Okay.
So you're going to have people on 29 riding?
Yeah. I mean, they are anyway.
Anyway, to
but that's-
Mustards and-
It's not technically the Vine Trail. So
Okay.
not yet. Soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks
All
good.
right. Well, if you catch anything, please let me know. But otherwise, I think Kelly's out through this week, but early next week will probably be that cutoff. And then any other for future changes I would make internally. So,
And there's a lot on here already. The thought that I had, and we can just let it go, but I thought I'd share it, is like an image of what the trail markers might look like.
oh, yeah. So
don't
that
know.
people know what to look for in the
Exactly.
future. Okay.
Exactly. I don't know if there's a way, because there's so much here.
I think we have some space on this side, and maybe what I would suggest is once we push that program out, we can update the map to say, look for path and trail markers.
Right.
So wanted to get through this and then come have a little time. So most likely in the late winter, early spring is when we'll start to really formalize and get those ordered.
Great.
Yeah. That's a great suggestion.
Sure, there'll be something in the Yountville Sun that will highlight this new trail system with
With the markers.
the images of the markers. or
Yeah,
something for people.
absolutely. We'll make a big deal out of it. But yeah.
And then there'll be, the maps like this will be printed, that'll be a smaller size, I'm assuming.
We'll have some printed. The thought process that I have is to have this, available in kind of like the kiosk way so people can see it. We talked about in some of the key areas like at Vineyard Park having something that people can look at, and then really trying to focus more on the digital and not print a ton of maps. But if people want one, yeah, absolutely.
The kiosk would be
When you
great.
print it on 8.5 by 11, it's
So
very
small.
small. So
Well, the other thing is if you just take a picture of it on your phone, you can just go ahead and expand the section
Yeah.
that you're walking. And
That's right.
absolutely. And I don't know if you've downloaded it yet, but the Outer Spatial app is really an interesting tool too. So you might take a look at that, and you can actually scan this QR code if you wanted to. And these should be all updated. But it's an interesting, and it's not just here; it's throughout Napa County and really all over. So it's an interesting model.
So when she was here the last two meetings we've had her present, so St. Helena's going through the same process, Calistoga and Napa as well, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
your feedback.
Thank you. Okay, let's go back here. So next item on our agenda I'm getting to Rosalba.
Oh, yeah, it's not.
Public Works, yes. Item number 8A.
Good evening.
Rosalba.
Rosalba Ramirez, Deputy Public Works Director, and I'm just here to give a few brief updates on some public works items in relation to parks and public spaces. So the first one, we just did just have a contractor finish doing some improvements on the concrete work or the sidewalks or the pathways in some areas that had lifted sidewalk. He's still going to come back, and they're still going to come back and do some lifted sidewalk over at Forester Park. Nothing to do with those parking stalls. This is all just the sidewalk that's going around and through the actual playground. So we'll still see some work out there, but for the most part, we did some improvements at Vandeleur and in front of the community center at Vineyard Park. And then previously we had finished some at Veterans Park. So, and then as we see more issues pop up in public spaces, we'll do more work. It's just as we find them and see them or our attention gets brought to them, we'll make those repairs. We also, I don't know if you've seen, we have a new electric vehicle that's the town owned that we drive around. We're getting a second one that's shaped more like a truck, and that'll be used by our courtyard staff to go around to parks and empty the trash cans. So should see a second one in the next couple of months, specifically doing the maintenance work and cleaning up the parks. And talking about trash cans, we did receive the Big Belly compacting trash bins. They're still being assembled. It's almost complete, and so we'll start placing them in the various parks. And I don't know the exact locations, but I do believe it's Veterans and the North Park, and I believe Vineyard. So if you've been to downtown Napa, you've seen them. Those are the same ones that we'll be having around town in our public spaces. And if they really work out well, we might apply for that grant again and maybe put them in more public spaces. But we are open to feedback to them as well. We just recently installed, I don't know if you happen to use the Vine Trail or ride your bike or walk up over towards California to catch the Vine Trail, we just installed some safety signs, just the standard California MTZD crosswalk or pedestrian crossing signs. They're nice, they're bright, they have our wooden frame on it, and we have a double-sided sign for the westbound traffic and then another one for the eastbound traffic. So just trying to improve signage there and alert people that there is a crosswalk going across California to the Vine Trail. And I believe that's all for Public Works. Do you have any questions for me?
That'll be a good sign, I'm thinking, for all the folks on the Vine Trail, especially folks that are not residents of Napa that just are here visiting and realize that's a busy intersection right there.
Yeah.
From the Vets Home and then the winery and Solano, et cetera.
Hopefully it brings attention to that. And again, open to feedback on that as well.
Thank you.
Just in case you don't remember, the Big Belly trash cans are those solar compacting trash receptacles that are fully enclosed. So it's really going to save time on our end because we won't have to empty them as often. And there'll actually be less cans in each space because of them. And they actually are now going to be trash recycling and green waste, food waste.
Nice.
So we're making really good strides in that area.
I had a question. I seem to ask it a lot, so it won't come as a surprise. What's happening with the landscape architect for the Three Wares Park and that path?
So at the last council meeting where we presented this item, which is a couple months ago, the direction we received was to hire a CASP or ADA specialist to do an evaluation of our parks in the town in regards to what kind of accessibility we have to provide there. So that's where we're at right now. So we are in talks with the consultant that did the presentation at that meeting. He's looking over the scope. We'll be contracting with them and then proceeding with the evaluation. And once that evaluation gets completed, then we'll present that. And then depending on the direction we get from there is where that landscape might come in. So
Yeah, good. You've taken it back to square one.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Have you had any from the folks that were, I know the reverse issue, but the park, the ADU parking that's at the Veterans Park now by the bocce courts, have you had any feedback from that from folks that they are happy with it or not happy at all?
We haven't had anybody verbally call in. We have seen a handful of people using the space.
Good.
So that's always good. but we haven't had anybody call in and say they're either for or against
Okay.
it.
I had someone at 4th of July say this is great because they were actually in a van, a wheelchair accessible van, and I was walking by and they were like, "Oh, this is a great new spot." So it is being utilized.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Then I know there was some interest in trying to obtain a grant for the path at Vineyard Park to go around the tennis and pickleball courts. Any update on that at all?
That grant's been submitted, and right now we are just kind of in the waiting phase. So we knew when we submitted it that it could take at least 6 months to hear back, and so we haven't heard back yet. I do have a reminder to kind of just keep checking in to see if we don't receive anything, any news updates, if they have any updates on their website, but they haven't put any updates there, so I think it's still just going through the process.
Great, thank you.
We are hopeful.
Yeah, it's funny how those work when we did the solar permitting process. It seems sometimes it shows up on the website even before they tell anybody.
Yeah.
They tell the applicant. You just kind of go, how does that happen?
And sometimes they at least put updates saying currently processing applications, will release information on this date. Some of them do that. This one hasn't, but doesn't mean they won't in a few months.
Yeah, thank you.
It's nice you don't have a lot of items to go over tonight for us.
Yeah.
For a change. I know you have so much information to share with us, which is great. Shorter one. Okay, I guess we can go on to our next one is Park and Rec Department General Update from Samantha.
All right.
8B.
So I just wanted to give you an update on a couple things you had approved. So you had approved and moved to council the memorial bench for the Leonardi family, and that was installed and is there. We're going to work on some bark and stuff around the footings for it, but it's really lovely, and the family was obviously very appreciative. You had also approved a memorial tree for Susan Cole, which the council then approved at their first meeting since then, which was last night. So that'll be moving forward as well, and that, again, will be a tree in Yountville Community Park with a rock with a plaque in memorial of, or in memory of Susan Cole. So just an update on those things. So yeah, currently we are very busy working towards Yountville Days, which, as you know, is October 7th, is our Yountville Days Parade and Festival. The parade starts at 11, comes up Washington Street, and we have about the same parade entries as last year, so it should be a terrific day. And we still are looking for a few volunteers for the parade route monitoring, so if you or you know someone who's interested, just please reach out to me. Fall class. Oh, and just as a reminder, the festival goes till 2. We're going to have a really terrific band, a lot of kids activities. We've added back some arts and crafts vendors and food and wine and beer. So we're really hoping people, bring out their blankets and lawn chairs and hang out for the afternoon until 2 o'clock.
I thought it was 3, so it's cleaned up by 3, perhaps? Or?
It is 2 o'clock.
Got it.
Yes. Sorry. I know in the vendor packet it still said 3, so
Okay.
You'll receive my update.
Good.
Yes. So yeah, I'm excited about that. We also have 8 nonprofit or other entity info booths, which is really exciting. It's the most we've had. So Friends of the Yountville Library will be there. The library, Napa County Library. We have Molly's Angels and Blue Zones, so a lot of interesting information given out too. Upper Valley Waste, always riveting. So just great to have our partners out there too. So we are in the midst, we're into week 2 of our fall classes and programs that started last week, and we are at 180 Golden Ticket members, which is 30 more than our highest number ever. So it is really amazing. And I did some numbers. Those 180 people are taking 700 and I think it was 86 classes and programs a week, which is really incredible. And what makes us the most gratified is, almost 50% of those are residents of Yountville. So this is our continues to be our highest resident serving program. And it's just great to have the community center, bustling with with our residents as well. It's a little bit of a different vibe than bustling with 75 children. So, and we're just lots of moving pieces. We are still recruiting for weekday, daytime building attendants to assist with that. So that continues to be kind of a difficult recruitment. But if you know anybody, it's a great job for a retired person who maybe wants 15 hours a week during the day. So if you know anybody, it's posted on our website. A college student also would be a great fit. Something else I wanted to just bring attention to is we're continuing our leader in training program throughout the whole year. And Taylor's really doing a terrific job with that, encouraging teens and kids who are aging out of our camp program. So most of them are in middle school up to 14, 15 years old. And the leader in training program, they meet every third Friday. They go over different leadership attributes, play games, try to, help these kids build their leadership skills. And then they're also given opportunities to volunteer in all of the things that we're doing. And they sign up to do that. And they have, rewards for volunteering. And so we're continuing that on. We have 14 teens signed up, which is really exciting, which is more teens than live here in Yountville, as you probably are equating. But we do have a couple of resident kids in that program as well. But it's a nice feeder for us because, we get these kids in and we're really training them, and then hopefully they'll apply for jobs for us when they're able to. And it also gives us this really great pool of volunteers for things like Yountville Days and the Halloween Carnival and, things that are appropriate for youth.
Parks and Rec Advisory
Good,
Committee
that's
meeting,
right.
student
Parks and
member.
Rec Advisory Committee meeting. Exactly.
Perfect spot.
Yes, we will definitely be talking about that. They start this Friday, tomorrow. That's their first meeting. Yeah. And then, of course, we're always planning for holidays. So fast approaching, Halloween Carnival will be happening, and I'll send that out to you all if you're interested in volunteering. It's sponsored through our Kiwanis Club and what used to be our local dentist, but he's still very involved, Dr. Dennington. But our Kiwanis Club makes up the majority of the volunteers that help run the games. So, but obviously Parks and Recreation commissioners are welcome. And then we head right into our winter holidays. So lots going on. And in the midst of that, we're working on our winter spring brochure. So that will take us from January to May.
Plus, you have camps during breaks.
We do, yeah. We continue to have turkey camp and winter camp and spring camp. But we have a great captive audience of young staff that came on for summer camp this year. So although we do have some still college age, many were high school, which helps us with those break camps. So, yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
I should know the answer, but what is the date again in the Halloween Carnival?
It is Saturday, October 28th.
The 28th, okay.
Yeah, right before Halloween. I also one other thing I wanted to point out. We are having, Yountville Arts is doing some really fun things in the plaza at the community center. So you might come by, notice pumpkins, and they have hay bales and some things there, but it's all kind of leading to our first ever annual scarecrow contest. So we have 10 sign-ups so far. There's some friendly competitions going on amidst some people, departments. So, but we have 10 total people interested. And so those will load in on October 16th, and then it'll be even more festive. So,
Oh, that's great.
doing some fun and different things.
Speaking of different things, I saw the Glow Pickleball.
Oh, my.
Where did that idea come from?
That was Garrett.
That's a wild.
It was wild, and the next one is full already.
Yeah.
So it's a fairly small group, but so everybody gets time. But yeah, they were getting a lot of calls from other Parks and Rec saying, how did you do that? And what are the supplies? And it's really creative.
It was incredibly creative.
Yeah.
Took me by surprise.
Yeah. Because I've heard of a glow golfing, but not pickleball.
So now he's like, we're going to do glow cornhole. He was doing
Cornhole, yeah, it's
research
planned.
today. We're really going to maximize these supplies that we bought. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Great. Good job.
Great ideas.
Yeah.
Young folks.
We have a great team.
Yeah, you've got a
really,
lot of
really great team. I'm really grateful for them.
Oh, gosh. There were so many things you've got going on in that little front office there. It's amazing.
Yeah.
What's going on. Anybody, any questions or anything more for Samantha? Okay, thank you, as always.
absolutely.
Oh, yeah, because when we come back, it'll be it'll be after the Christmas tree lighting, which is that Sunday of
Yes.
Thanksgiving.
Oh my
After-
gosh, yes, it will be.
Yeah, the 19th is that Christmas, right.
That's a lot to take in.
Gosh.
The year has flown by.
Yeah.
Or actually, sorry, our meeting is the Thursday before that.
Okay.
We'll have a reminder.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We
Thursday.
come back in November.
November
15th.
16th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're the 15th, right? Yeah. Next meeting is the 15th. I want to say?
16th.
16th, sorry. I
Yeah,
can't
just
see
look at
it's
my notes
folded.
for that part.
And then the tree lighting's that
Tree
Sunday.
lighting, right, that's Sunday. Okay, on number 9 on our agenda, we have commissioner comments or reports from any of us?
May I raise a couple?
Sure.
Thank you. First of all, it's just delightful, and congratulations on the getting the plan. That's
Thank
really
you.
exciting. That's one of the main reasons why I wanted to join here, was just to see that process, Sam. It just
Commissioner Courtney, I believe it's either off or not.
It's
close enough.
on.
Okay.
I mumble.
It's fine.
I know we're moving into winter. Is there anything on the shade for the plaza?
So we are kind of in a holding pattern a little bit right now. We had budgeted to put in the tables and umbrellas, and we're kind of seeing how that is solving the issue a little bit. When we started to really think about it, the shade structures would really change that street, kind of how you view the building from the street. Obviously, any type of structure. So it's not totally off the table to have something more permanent, but we're seeing how the umbrellas are working and serving the area, and we may kind of revisit that.
Are you getting mock-ups about height by any chance?
We did a little bit. Rosalba had a few things come in, but it really does change the street frontage there. And so, we were kind of thinking, like, is this really what we want to move forward with?
It really
So-
sounds good until you start.
Yeah, it does. And there was, an issue there. So, the umbrellas were definitely a less expensive implementation. And so with the tables, and we're kind of seeing how that works and if we feel like we need to move forward with something else. So we're kind of in a holding pattern on that one.
No, thank you. I was just curious. That's great. I did want to run something by you, and I was going to reach out directly to you. So I work in a number of other jurisdictions. And today we had a leadership change. And so they got everyone together, and they kind of made a big deal out of it. And I enjoy working with this group. But I didn't want to just reach out to you and say, hey, can you put something together for the last meeting so that we could take a picture together with Eddie and Hillary and Rosalba and yourself and maybe Brad, and then the commission at the last meeting of the year. But I only wanted to run that and see what people's appetites were, and I don't want to know now. I wanted to put that out there, and then if there's no appetite, that's okay. But Sam, maybe you'll tell me, and then maybe we could do something like that.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be great. And then we can, at very least to have the commission as a whole, and then, we can add that to our website and stuff.
Yeah, so maybe
November?
Do you mind following up on that? And
Yeah, no,
then-
absolutely.
I just don't want anyone on Front Street.
Yeah. No, I'll definitely follow up,
Okay.
and then hopefully we'll have Kathy here. And, we are, as you know, still recruiting for our student rep, and we've been running some social media posts. I'm hoping to maybe capture that, but tomorrow night we'll also make that announcement at their first LIT meeting.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I did want to just following up with the umbrellas. The color choices are great. It's just so, it pops. It looks wonderful.
So that was Brad's idea. He had gone to Bistro Don Giovanni and said, if we're going to do umbrellas, you should do them all different colors. And so I was like,
No, it
that's
looks
a great
really
idea.
good.
We have a lot of comments on, positive comments on it.
Good.
Yeah, it was quite striking when it first showed up.
Right.
I think
Because
I
I
commented.
had that in my notes to follow up, because I know at the last meeting, you'd asked for 2 representatives from the commission to be on that.
And I was excited.
Yeah, we were the
Yeah,
2
I
on it, and
know.
thought-
So was the Arts
Yeah.
Commission. I was like, I think I may
And I
have
thought,
jumped the gun on
well,
that.
she didn't
Got
say
demoted.
anything yet. And I thought, well, they got the color umbrellas, and they kind of solved part of that.
And I think, that was something the council added kind of last minute in the budget process. They were like, go do this. And so we were kind of like, well, let's figure out how to go do this. And then when we really started to look at it, it's like, the frontage of the community center is pretty special. And so to put something structural there is really going to change that. And
Because it would have to, it would just go, the roof and angling down, it would just, you wouldn't notice. how
And,
the
and
community
shade is
center-
an interesting thing, as you probably may or may not think about, is that if it's too high, it's not providing the shade that you need. So it does have to be at a certain height to actually be effective. So it's a bigger picture.
Yeah, and they're utilized whenever I drive by or walk by, I look, and there's always 2 or 3 of the tables that have got folks at it. And
On the weekends especially, people, it's, Bouchon fills up and they come over
Yeah.
to the plaza. But I see meetings happening there, local business people coming over to have a small meeting. There's obviously a lot of people that are just, sitting out there enjoying it, so.
I was by, I had to stop at the post office yesterday, but the library hour that they do in the morning, and then they had the kids out there doing the storytelling right out, just a couple of those tables right outside the library.
The story time. Yep.
Story time, yeah, that was a perfect setting for all that.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any comments or questions? Okay, well, guess what? This is record. I think we can go ahead and call for a motion in a second to adjourn our meeting for September 21st, 2023. Is there a motion?
So
I move
moved.
to adjourn.
And that's, it'll go.
I'll
My left.
second. You can put me on second.
Okay. First, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No. Okay. Thank you much. Our next meeting, Rosalba wants to stay right. And Eddie has a farthest drive, right. Next meeting is November 16th at 6 p.m. Thank you.